Good evening, Greg here, burning both ends, burning on the back end of a Sunday. Love Sunday nights. This is a special night. I'm still in Westport, Connecticut, and tonight I got bubbly water, but I also have a little bit of tonic water. I'm a big fan. That's actually backwards on the video, I think, but that's Fever Tree tonic water. I'm a huge fan of tonic water, and I really like my sister-in-law on my wife's side has turned me on to some of the high-end tonics. And so I really love bubbly water with a little bit of tonic. Now, I usually don't do that because I'm on my paleo diet, but this weekend for my dad's birthday, I'm breaking the paleo. And I have to say, I don't think I could have survived without breaking it with all the types of food that we were eating. I mean, the dim sum, lots of pizza in New York City, so there's no way I could have survived without breaking the paleo. And so that's why I haven't been doing the tonic with some bubbly water, and usually it's about 1/4 tonic, 3/4 bubbly water with a little squeeze of lime. Nice and a little bit sugary, a little bit of bitterness from the tonic, but I just love that drink. So I also enjoy that. So I'm really kind of thrilled that my brother in his house here in Westport, Connecticut had some Fever Tree tonic water, which is really high end, really crisp and clean tonic. I'm not a big fan of like the typical high fructose corn syrup tonics, and so we're kind of off to a odd topic tonight, but I'm a huge fan of food. You will find out in the near future. In the next month of posts, I'm going to dedicate a whole week to my love of food. This first month is really just dedicated to just the lessons I've learned in life, the things that I've used for success, and just trying to document this for my daughters, for you guys out there, to just pass on any wisdom that I've learned from many wise people in my lifetime so far. And kind of like the way I see it working is I need to release this information to the world so I can replace it, so I can make room for more wisdom to come in, because that's what I'm at right now. I'm looking to grow my network, I'm looking to meet new people, I'm looking to just elevate my game, all these things. And so this first month of postings is really just kind of I don't want to call it a purge, but it's kind of like that. It's like let me archive everything I've learned that I can think of in a month, and then make room for some new things to come in. And so I'm very excited about that. And so now let me move to my other sister-in-law on my brother's side. So she inspired tonight's talk, and we were talking today about parenting. And so I'm going to talk a lot about parenting tonight. Actually, that's tonight's topic is traits good for preschool are not necessarily good for life. And the things that we teach our kids at a very young age that then we kind of, in my opinion, have to retrain them when they get out into the real world. And let me just put out a huge disclaimer right here on the front end of this is I do not intend to tell anyone how to parent their kid. What this is simply, me, that's the bubbly coming out, sorry about that, is me just relaying the successes and the failures I've had with my two children, right? I have a 7 and a 4-year-old, 2 girls, and the things that I've seen them learn, that the times I've seen them kind of feed back to me, the things I've learned in life that have led me to success, that I know I'm teaching my daughter this, but I know later in life, this is going to be a little different, and I'll get into all these little things. So just huge disclaimer, I'm not telling anyone how to parent their kid. I'm just relating my experience in parenting my children. So let's begin. So, and once again, traits good for preschool, not necessarily good for life. And my opinion is, there sometimes in preschool and elementary school there can be too much of a focus on like sharing and obedience and like what I would consider like passive behavior or like non-aggressive behavior, because this does work well in preschool, right? We want all the kids to get along, and especially some of the teachers where they've been in this business for decades and they want the kids to behave. I get it. However, when you get to real life, or when I get to real life, it requires me to take ownership of things. It requires knowing when to break rules. It requires sometimes aggressive behavior to get ahead, since competition is more fierce now than ever. Right? It's a global economy. There's more competition. It's just, and I would say anyone that has recently been through the job application process will attest to this, because what we learned in grade school doesn't really help much in this competitive real world. And so for me, I applaud the traits of my daughters that, kind of go against some of these traditional preschool rules. I appreciate when my daughters push back against requests and try and negotiate and break the rules in a productive way. I mean, of course, there are some times where it's just like, that's the rule, and like, we don't hit other kids. I mean, that's a rule. I mean, we don't do that. But I do appreciate when my daughter, pushes back against, hey, can I have dessert? And I say no, and then well, how about if we just have some chips and guac? Or, it's amazing how they learn some of this negotiation style, and I appreciate it, even though at the time it might be a little bit annoying and frustrating because I just want them to go to bed, or I just want them to eat healthy, and we don't want to do ice cream, things like that. But so let's get into some details here. So first we'll start with rules. So I know rules are important, but there are times when it is required that we break the rules, right? If I were just to apply to jobs the way that most people would, clicking through a job application through a LinkedIn or on a website, there are times when, you got to sneak around the back door, look for a side door or a window that's cracked open. You got other ways to get into companies that are very non-traditional and not walking through the front door. I want to make sure that my kids are empowered to ask questions and make requests, even if they're told something. I mean, I think it's totally acceptable for them to come back and say, well, I want to push back against this, and this is why. And as long, as they're respectful, I think it's fine. And I think what this shows is this pushback shows an awareness of the environment. It shows critical thinking, which I'm a huge fan of. The power of negotiation. I love this quote, right? And this has to go with, there's a big salary debate right now going on. I think there's been one going on for quite some time. I love this quote, like, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate, which I'm a full believer in. And by the way, just shout out to my sister-in-law. So I was missing my Mad Bomber hat, so I'm borrowing hers for tonight. A little warm in here, but I love the Mad Bomber hat, so I'm rocking my sister-in-law's Mad Bomber hat. So Brooke, thank you very much. So back to rules. Back to breaking the rules, right? So awareness of the environment, critical thinking, negotiation, the power of negotiation. I think these are very important things. And if I just shut down a negotiation, I'm teaching my daughter to not negotiate and not push back. And I think it's okay to kind of engage with her when she gets into this negotiation. And, sometimes I let her win, sometimes I'm going to win, sometimes there's a big struggle. I mean, so I think that's important, because something for me is, if I'm going for a job, or my daughter's going for a job later in life, I mean, I would never accept the initial offer. And I've hired and fired many people, and I'd have to say, like, I really appreciate the people that when I throw an offer out, they come back with a counter offer. Hey, how about an extra 5%? Or how about an extra week of vacation? Or, here, I'd like these 3 things. Which one do you think that you can give me? More vacation, more salary, or maybe, I don't know, a more flexible work schedule, like I can work, 9-hour days and have every other Friday off. Things like that. I appreciate that, because it just, it just shows thinking, and it shows awareness, and I want to reward that behavior in my children. I think it's important. But at the same time, they have to be okay with a no, right? That's the whole thing about making requests, is I got to be cool with getting no for an answer. And as long as that's okay, I think it's fine. And also, I just want to make sure that my kids are not walked over in life. I know many people that they just take what they're given, and that's it, and then they complain, and then they wonder why they're getting behind. I want to make sure that my daughters feel empowered to go after what they want, and go after it aggressively, and and not take no for an answer. Sometimes, right? And then there's a push, and there's a negotiation, but then at some point, kind of, once again, with that awareness of the environment, realize when, okay, no is the answer, and that's it, and pushing at that, pushing after that point is futile. So the next piece here, ownership, leadership, responsibility. These are really important things. These are very important traits for success. My oldest daughter has been called a ringleader by now 2 different schools, and it's spoken to us like it's a negative thing. I think it's kind of a positive thing. She takes leadership, she takes ownership in things, she's leading other kids, maybe in games at recess. I think that's really cool. I think it shows drive, it shows leadership, it shows a willingness to take risks. I think that's important. And, and also with that, with risks come mistakes. And I think that's important too. I mean, failure is an important part of life. Making sure that my kids know that they can make mistakes. And that making the same mistakes comes with consequences. And we dish out consequences in our house. I would never ever hit my child, of course. I think that's somewhat foolish. Not somewhat, completely foolish. But there are consequences, there are timeouts, there are things taken away that they like. I think that this is important. I'm not a fan of the everyone gets a trophy model, where you're just showing up and you get a trophy. I think it's important to know that there are times when you don't put the effort in and you lose. My daughter recently went through a talent show experience where she was singing a song with a friend, and they really didn't practice that much. They went before the dress rehearsal, and they were so unprepared that they giggled the whole way through the rehearsal. And it was in front of a lot of people, and they felt really embarrassed afterwards, and my daughter cried a lot. And I did not want to say, oh, it's okay, it's okay. I said, well, let's look at this. Why were you giggling so much? Why? I mean, it's a very simple example, but I think it's very powerful because there was such an emotion attached to it. And I think it's my job as a parent to kind of show her, let's leverage that emotion. Let's practice between now, the dress rehearsal, and the actual performance, and see if we can improve that. And she did, and she had a much better performance at the show. There was a little bit of giggling at the show, but it was not nearly what it was in the dress rehearsal. And I think it went very well for her, and it was a good learning experience. And if I would have handled that differently and not made a big deal about, that, hey, you didn't practice and you giggled, there's a lesson there, and it's not everyone gets a trophy. And it's important to learn how to lose and to deal with rejection and to bounce back. That's critical in life. I've had many failures. I've had many successes, and that's kind of part of what I'm doing right now is I'm bouncing back from the last couple of years of not doing as well as I wanted to in Florida. Now I'm back in the Bay Area, and I'm looking to just crush it, and I feel that this is a path to doing it. And now, even with all this, with breaking rules and negotiating and pushing back, and I still think that there is never ever a reason to be mean to anybody. We can always be nice, and we can always be respectful. I think that's critical, right? I draw a hard line with hitting. Hitting in my household, that's a severe consequence. Things that my kids love are taken away. And they feel that, shoes, other toys, these things are taken away, and I feel that that's a good consequence. And there are certainly ways that one can push back with respect, and then once again, it's that awareness of environment, as far as when to realize when to stop, when to kind of take the foot off the gas and go, okay, I've been pushing back, I've been trying to compromise and negotiate on this thing. I'm getting a lot of pushback here. Let me ease off. And in here, this is where the nuances of this behavior is taught. Some people will allow a really good negotiation. Some people, they don't want to have one question asked, and they're just going to shut it down. And so, teaching my kids how to feel that environment, I think is really important. So anyway, so that's my kind of philosophy on parenting. I think it's really important. I'm seeing success in my kids. I'm seeing them grow and develop. It takes a lot of patience and persistence from me as a parent. It's a lot like leadership. It's the same, actually, it's identical to leadership. So I'm a big fan of this style. I'm really excited to see my kids grow up. It takes, it's a daily thing. It takes me and my wife showing up every day, doing these things consistently to be effective. And I'm so thankful that my wife and I are so engaged in our children's development and growth, and I'm thrilled to be a life partner with her. Dryer's done. And anyway, that's tonight's topic. Hope you enjoyed it. Please comment down below, subscribe. Let me know about your parenting tips and tricks. I'd love to learn them. I'm always looking to learn. There are some motivational videos linked down below. Check them out. No beats tonight, but check out. There's a link to the song by G Money, my alter ego, the drummer in me, that I write songs for drum sextets and quintets. Check it out. It's linked down below. If you like the beats, you can listen to them on SoundCloud. Yeah, and I want to be of service. So let me know about your journey. Let me know how I can help. If there's anything I can do to help, I would love to help. I'm a big fan of being of service, so that's a big part of this channel. So you all do well. Have a great night, and I'll see you in the morning.